Hello and welcome to the Pixelated Realms Gamescast, your guide through the digital landscape, untangling the mysteries of your favorite titles and discussing the latest and greatest in video game fun. I'm your host, Alex Lerner, and alongside me is my brother, Tyler. Dustin's in China. What's up, guys?
Welcome
Guy.
back.
I'm so used to saying that now. Yeah, first podcast of the new year. We had a little bit of a break. It was nice, Christmas and New Year's. So we had some fun time, some new games, had some time to catch up on some stuff.
Yeah, that was the best part. I actually got a game and get a break. So, with some seriously focused gaming sessions, and I have a lot to talk about, luckily.
Nice. I'm glad to hear it. So today we're going to be reviewing a few games that we've been playing over the break, including Star Wars Outlaws, Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm going to talk a little bit about Silent Hill 2 and Delta Force. So before we get into that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. First thing, the best way to show your support for us is to give us a follow and a subscribe. I know that's annoying to ask, but it's really the best way. We don't ask for any money or anything, so we really appreciate those who have done it. Also, we have a Patreon. You can go to pixelatedrealms.org/Patreon. We ask for no money. We just, love people to go there and subscribe. The reason is that's where we post our most up-to-date information, including announcements like our holiday episodes and stuff like that. Special announcements. We ask polls on there for questions and things like that. For instance, we're considering doing a book club. So kind of video game book club, and we ask questions on there to kind of refine our ideas. So if you have any interest or want to be part of our video game community, Patreon right now is the best place to do that. So we really appreciate everyone going over to that. That was pixelatedrealms.org/Patreon. All right, Tyler, what's up? So what have you been playing?
Yeah. So as I said, we got a good break in, which was really nice. Got to play a lot of games. Got to focus on beating them. So I started with Star Wars Outlaws when the winter break started. Because I just really wanted to beat it. I didn't know how close I was, but I was like 20 or 30 hours, or about like 20 hours in, maybe a little bit over. So I was like, I know I'm probably not far, and I've just been getting distracted by side quests. Well, that's kind of the best part about these games. Like, getting distracted by side quests is so like organic and makes you feel like integrated into this game and immersed. But excuse me. I did decide to just kind of focus on the story a little bit, and not a big spoiler, but you kind of spend the game collecting a heist crew to go do this big heist. So you kind of finish up, you collect your crew through all these various different stories lines, and I like the storylines. I thought they were pretty engaging. It wasn't like crying, but like I wasn't like emotionally attached or anything, but I thought they were pretty solid. You finish up the game, you get some really cool moments from story, big time Star Wars characters, a couple of like brushes with them, but nothing too egregious. And yeah, you kind of finish up the game and go from there. I was also able to play and beat the first story pack. They're calling them story DLCs or something like that. I was able to finish the first one. You get to go meet up with old Lando, and he teaches you a thing or two about how to play Zabak. And you end up going and entering a big Zabak tournament on a ship that is constantly in hyperspace, so it can never be. Yeah, so I won't reveal anything else, but it ends up going kind of crazy from there and really fun. I will say, too, on the final tournament, on the very final hand of the final tournament part, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you do play a Zabak tournament. I got a Prime Zabak, which is the best hand you can in the game, and I was just like,
nailed it.
Oh my god. So yeah, anyway, go play it for yourself. And then additionally, after I beat that one, and we'll go into some details later about how we're reviewing these, I dug my heels in and I beat Metaphor ReFantazio, and I'm really glad that I did. However, I definitely have a whole bunch of thoughts about it. It's a heck of a beast. It's a huge beast of a game, but I couldn't recommend it enough. It's fantastic. It's so good. I even went back and started playing Persona 5 because I just kind of wanted to keep that, I wanted to keep doing that game system.
And that's not a short game. That's a long game.
No,
both of them.
They're both like 60 to 80 hours, and I'll go into that later, but I logged basically 100 hours on my Metaphor run through. That's probably longer than needed, but I'll explain later. And then, yeah, after those games, I was in a deep gaming depression for a minute because I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I picked up Total Warhammer 3, and I've been messing around with that. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. How about yourself?
Nice. So over the break, I've been playing a lot of Well, my main squeeze right now is Delta Force. So, that game is so fun. I'm having such a good time in a time period right now where Call of Duty is kind of not as popular, and not my vibe, and just not a lot of good tactical level shooters. There's a lot of arcade shooters out there, like Fortnite arcade shooter. I consider like Apex, all those kind of games like arcade shooters. But when it comes to like tactical shooters, you kind of have two camps. You have like the Valorant, Counter-Strike kind of people, which I'm not really into. I don't really like that recoil kind of pattern and stuff like that. Like I don't like the gunplay in those games. And then you have, like Battlefield and like which typically I would bundle Call of Duty in there too usually. But Delta Force came out, free to play game, and has just really surprised me in like a very pleasant way of just how fun it is. It definitely gives me like Battlefield vibes, that kind of fun, with really good progression, and and they have an operations mode which I've talked about before, and I've been playing like tons
of that. So is that what you primarily play?
I switch back and forth. It depends. The operation mode is like kind of stressful to me. So if I'm just like trying to just like decompress after work, sometimes I'll just play I think they call it Warzone. No, what do they call it? I don't know. The other mode that's just like Battlefield, attack and defend. But I'll play operations pretty frequently throughout the week. Like I've been playing with Ralph and Goof. We actually even streamed it. We stream on Wednesdays usually now. And I'll stream it with him, and sometimes I'll stream it. I think I've been streaming to my personal Twitch. I haven't done it on Pixelated Realms for whatever reason. I probably should. But we've been playing that, and we recently beat the new raid that just came out on ultra hard difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty. And boy, that was fun. So they came out with this PvE, version raid within Operations. So Operations is like, if you're familiar with like Tarkov, it's like that. So you get your gear, you go in with other players, and you try and extract out with goods, and the other players and stuff can kill you. And if you die, you lose everything that you brought in. And but I think this is the most accessible version of that. Like Tarkov, in my opinion, is like way too hardcore, and that's kind of for someone who likes that hardcore. But it just goes to the point of it being like unplayable, because to a certain degree, it still has to be a game. Right, there still has to be like a game element to it, as opposed to just like straight up like real life in a video game. Otherwise there's no fun. Like I don't like having to find the fun. But
yeah. So what's a raid? What's different about a raid than the normal operation?
Oh, okay. So a raid in this case is basically like a kind of a co-op story mission, basically, is what it is. And luckily in this mode, if you die, you don't lose your stuff. So this is actually, I'm surprised they even roped it into the same mode because they're so different. But basically me, Ralph, and Goof jumped in, and Goof is just another friend of ours, and we jumped into this mode, and you have like a mission. It's basically like a campaign mission. It's like, we have to go and we're trying to eliminate this leader of a terrorist organization or whatever. And there's like 4 phases to it, and you go in and it spawns enemies like a normal campaign. You have to kill it to do your mission, and etc. But when one, it's really hard. 2, you have to bring your own gear. And then 3, it is like, I don't know where to go with that one. I'm going to move on. Anyways, so it was really hard, and it was very fun to play. And we did it about, I think, maybe like 15 times. So we unlocked, each time we beat a different difficulty, we unlocked some special gear. We also unlocked tickets to get like skins and things like that, like raid exclusive skins.
How long did one take?
I would say probably took us 30 minutes per run. And we probably did like 10 or 15 of them. So we first beat it in normal, which wasn't that hard. Then we beat it on hard mode, which took us probably like 4 or 5 tries. And then we beat on ultimate, I think after maybe like 3 tries, because we had played it so many times at that point. Maybe we played it like a total like 10 times. I kind of think that in the future, they're probably going to make it a little bit harder, to be honest. But if they make more of these, but
like if you guys don't lose your gear, you can just equip the best gear you have and go in.
Basically what we did. We eventually were just like, oh, because at first we thought we would lose our gear, so we were like very conservative about it. And then when we died like the first time, we were like, oh, we actually get to keep everything in this mode. So, which I really liked. But very, very, very fun. And, very fun to like work up to a victory like that, being able to like, okay, let's start with like normal. Okay, let's go and do this. Okay, hard mode. All right, we failed. Why did we fail? Let's try again. Let's improve. Getting all the way to the ultimate difficulty where we unlocked like an exclusive skin that was like, hey, like you made it. You did this like ultimate version of the game. Which is just, super satisfying, very fun. And then we can go back into operations and play normal operations. So had a great time doing that. Highly recommend, especially because it's like, if you die, you don't lose anything. So it was very fun, like very low risk. It was hard, but we were still able to do it. So love it.
That's cool.
Highly recommend. We
Sounds
stream
fun.
every Wednesday night. And then I've also been playing Silent Hill 2.
Oh, yeah, tell me about that.
Okay, so a little backstory about me. I love horror games. I'm a big horror game guy. I played the original Silent Hill, love that game. So this was like so up my alley. I think something that the mistake that I did is I had Alan Wake 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I wanted to platinum it. So I was like, oh, before I start Silent Hill 2, I want to go back and platinum Alan Wake 2 because that's just up on my list, and I don't kind of like to start new things unless I finished out the previous ones, or at least have too many things going on at once. So I went and I platinumed Alan Wake 2 and then jumped straight into Silent Hill 2, which I think was a little bit of a mistake because Alan Wake 2 is just so fucking good that then jumping over to another game that even if it'll never reach that level, right? Like no matter how good it is. And so now I'm like comparing everything to Alan Wake 2. So when I played this one, I was like, just okay. It was just okay. Like I had played the original, and when I played the original when I was like younger, I remember it blowing me away and being awesome and scary and crazy. This one, I don't get scared in these games. I don't get like scary movies don't scare me, and like scary games don't scare me. I like games that can thrill me, that make my heart race, and I'm like, oh god, oh god, oh god. Because like jump scares to me are cheap, like they don't get me. But something that can make me feel stressed in a game, like that's something special. I didn't get any of that for Silent Hill. So because I'm not scared by I think they rely very heavily on the creepy ambience of the town. And so the fact that I'm not creeped out by that, I feel like I missed a lot of what the game was supposed to be about, right? It's supposed to be like, you're supposed to feel creeped out the entire time. I didn't feel that way because it just doesn't scare me. Like I'm a video game guy. Like I'm just like, oh, this is a video game, whatever, run to the house. Like,
I had the same feeling when I was playing Dead Space, the remaster. Because, like, I remember when we first played Dead Space, we were screaming and yelling, and it was, like, the time of our lives. But now that I, like, knew I had a gun that basically was going to carry me through the game, I was just like, oh, perfect. Boom.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's a guy behind me. No problem. Turn around. Boom.
Right. It becomes less scary.
The fear factor that once had is gone because I know I have the greatest weapon I'll ever need in the beginning of the game.
Exactly. Like that's one of the things like about Alan Wake 2 that I find is so nice is like even though like you're very strong and stuff like that, there are still moments where you're like creeped out and stressed, and like the story is really good on top of that. So even if the scariness has nothing to doesn't get you, the story is really good. Silent Hill, the story is like awful. In fact, I would say there's like borderline no story. And I know there's probably some people out there, hold on, that are like, hey, well, you don't know that this actually really deep and all these things, and there's like, a hidden message. You gotta wait till you get to the end.
Story like you're trying to find your child or something?
Your
wife. Your sister or your wife?
Your dead wife who's dead. But
who's calling you or something? Yeah.
So, but okay, I want to like address the people that are like, whoa, you gotta dive into the lore. I know the lore. I know the lore.
Have you beat the game yet?
I haven't, but I know. But it's a remaster. It's a remake of an older game, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I already know. I've beaten the original one like 1,000 times. I know the whole thing. I'm not going to spoil it because I don't want to spoil anything. But like, I know what the game's like, thing is. But yeah, the twist. I know what the twist is. But this one, it's like literally, you play as this guy named James Sunderland, and you're like, okay, you got a letter from your dead wife saying go to Silent Hill. And that's like the entire story. And then you go into Silent Hill and you find monsters, and your character's like completely nonchalant about it. And he's like, that's totally normal.
That's weird.
It always bothers me when like your character doesn't react to weird things at all, like even a little bit. Or like you pick up these syringes that are like meth needles, and they're clearly like used and they're gross. And your guy's like, oh yeah, and like totally like injects himself in it, and I'm just like, it totally breaks the immersion of the game because you're like, he didn't even say
suspension
anything.
of
He wasn't even
disbelief,
like,
yeah.
that doesn't look safe or anything. Like, like he's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's a healing needle. Like,
although this is a slightly better example, it does remind me of BioShock when your guy
Yeah.
is just like, boom, and sticks the needle into his wrist, and he gets like magic powers. But I'm like, dude, that might have been poison.
Yeah, you got that out of a fucking vending machine, dude.
Right, you don't know how much you were supposed to take. You could have given yourself like 800% dose.
I
But
know,
you got
right?
magic powers, so good.
I know. There's a certain balance to things. And it's just like, well, you spend a lot of time in that game just wandering around. And so game mechanics are this. It's a maze. So you're just walking through this maze. You do maybe a puzzle every 2 hours, I would say. Like, there's very few puzzles in the game. Or maybe every hour. Maybe I'm being a little... But, like, let's say you have one puzzle an hour, which is not very fast. You have enough ammo and guns to kill every monster. So, like, I'm fucking hunting these monsters
You're
down.
Ram.
Like, they are not... And I have it on the standard difficulty, I admit. Like, I'm not, like, playing on the hardest mode. But I played on the mode that you're, quote-unquote, supposed to play on. So I'm... I'll see an enemy and I'm just like, get over here, you little bitch. Like, bam,
Right.
like, take him out because so it's not scary when I find an enemy. And there's only like, I'm 10 hours into the game. I'm probably more than 2/3 through the storyline. And because there's an achievement to beat it in 10 hours. So I'm kind of assuming that I'm probably like in my slowest, probably like maybe like 2/3 of the way through. And there's only been, I want to say maybe like 2 different enemy types. Maybe 3. There's three enemy types. So I'm like, okay, I'm 10 hours into the game, and not including Pyramid Head, the boss, who just kind of sometimes pops up. Okay, in 10 hours, I've seen him twice. And then I've seen 3 enemy types. So I'm like, okay, I'm this far into the game, and there's like very, very little variety. So it's like, okay, very little variety. You have one gun through almost the entire game until you finally get a second gun near like where I am now. And then there's very few puzzles. It's a lot of just wandering around. And I'm like, people give this game like a really high score generally on things. And I'm kind of like, I'm having trouble finding that. And I don't know if it's a combination of me having played the original when it first came out and I had this like mental image of what that was supposed to be like, or coming off of Alan Wake 2, or if I'm just getting old and, jaded and just I'm like, this isn't as good as I remember. I don't know what is the thing, but like, to me, like, I'm not understanding the hype. And I would even go so far to say, well, you know what, maybe I'll hold my official review until our next segment and I'll dive into that a little bit. But like,
yeah,
I'm just
enough,
surprised because
Silent
Silent Hill, the review score, let me see. Let me go to Metacritic right now. So on IGN, let's see what they gave it. IGN gave it a 8. They gave it an 8. Which is pretty high.
It's definitely one of those times where you're like, how much of our old perception of the game is influencing, right, our new perception? Like,
yeah,
Silent Hill 2 could have been landmark at the time, but then like it doesn't hit the same. It's kind of like Halo, right? Like Halo was a landmark game, but like I personally do not think Halo hits the same anymore because there's been hundreds of shooters that have come out, copying it basically, and we've evolved since then. And debatably, Halo hasn't really evolved successfully enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at this. I'm on Metacritic right now. Metascore 86. User score 9.2. Latest reviews 10 out of 10. Almost perfect game. Top 5 story ever. 9 out of 10. This one has a 6 out of 10. Let me see. Let me go to more. 10. Excellent game. Captures the original. 9, 10, 8. And like, so maybe I'm missing something here, but like especially the top 5 story, because there's very little story. The story is like, it's like I don't want to like ruin anything. So you're looking for your dead wife. You literally show up. You park your car on top. You spend 10 minutes of the first 10 minutes of the game is you walking down a dirt path. And I'm not even kidding that it takes 10 minutes to get to actually the Silent Hill and to get to anything that you can interact with. You're literally just walking down this forest dirt path for like 10 straight minutes. And then you finally get there. You meet some random character that has no impact on the story for a long time. Then you wander through Silent Hill for a while, find a monster, and you're like, that's kind of strange. Wander through an apartment complex. wander through a hospital. No story beats in this entire time, by the way. This is like you're probably like 6 to 8 hours at this point. Not a single story beat. Then you eventually meet another character that it isn't clear why she's in the story at all. So like, let's say you go in blind and you don't know the story already. You end up spending some time with this character for a while, for a couple hours. Has no impact on the story as far as you're concerned at that point, right? And it's like, so you're kind of like, okay, I've met Pyramid Head. I met two characters that don't seem to fit in at all with this. And I have no further information about my wife. Zero. You have zero information about your wife. So I'm having trouble finding out where this like masterful story is coming from. And I know there's a twist at the end, and I know that there's multiple endings. And it's like, does that make up for the lack of story up until that point? I'm unsure, right? So I've been ranting quite a bit about Silent Hill 2. I'm going to leave it at that.
Curious to hear what you think once you finish it. You know, maybe it will change your thoughts, or maybe it won't.
Maybe. I think I might actually do an official review video for this game on the Pixelated Realms podcast. So, you know, take a look out for that. I think I'll do maybe like a 5-minute, like, here's my thoughts and, you know, gameplay footage and stuff like that. But I feel like I am somehow super disassociated with the version of the game. Like, am I playing the same game that's getting these 9 and 10 out of 10s? You know, like how am I so off in that? Like, I am confused. And if you have played this game and you really like this game and you think I am absolutely, completely wrong, please comment and tell me why I'm wrong, because I want to know. I cannot figure out why I'm so off on this, because this is a game that like I should love. So please drop a comment and be like, Alex, you're a total idiot. You could start it with that. Alex, you're a total idiot. This is why this game is awesome. And please tell me, because I want to know. I'm going to finish the game and maybe I'll do a follow-up next, like when I do. But like, I cannot, I'm just having trouble finding it. Like I saw online somewhere that somebody had they added a mod. I think it was maybe like the PC version. They added a mod that removed all the fog from the game. And I thought it was hilarious because I was like, now it just looks like you're walking through a town simulator. Like there's like 99% of the creepiness is gone. Right. And I was like, wow, that fog is doing heavy work in this game, because now you're just like checking doors. I can't tell you how many times in that game you're just like jiggling door handles because you're like, is this one open? Does this one open? Does this one open? Like, yeah.
Wow. Well, interesting. Yeah, I mean, Katie got it for Christmas too, so I'll have to watch her when she plays through it. But should we move on to some questions now?
Yeah, let's do it. That's enough about Alex rambling about his bad takes on video games. Okay, so now let's hear from you. It's time to Ask Pixelated Realms, where we answer your questions and read your comments. If you'd like to join the conversation, head over to pixelatedrealms.org/ask. Let's dive into what you are curious about. And today we have a question from one and only the legendary Ralph, who is a friend of the show and often on with us. We love you, Ralph. The same one that we stream Delta Force with. So he has a big question. I had to do a little bit of research on this beforehand just to make sure that I was answering this correctly. But the question is, Call of Duty recently had a bunch of big-name streamers boycott Black Ops 6 and Warzone due to Call of Duty's inability to crack down on cheaters, as well as their AI-powered reporting system incorrectly shadow banning innocent players. Why do you think Call of Duty struggles with more cheaters than other companies like Apex or Fortnite, who have more players than Call of Duty? Okay, buckle up, guys, because this is going to be a doozy, and I'm going to tell you beforehand that the answer is not going to be very satisfying, so I apologize in advance. So for those who have been listening, I have a degree in software engineering. I'm a computer scientist. I have been a computer scientist for over 10 years. I am a senior software engineer at a big company, and so I know a thing or two about how the technology works for these things. I spent a good portion of my career in computer security, and I was also in the United States Army cybersecurity warfare program, cybercom. So I have direct experience related to things around this nature. That being said, Call of Duty, okay, so Call of Duty uses what they call as their anti-cheat Ricochet system. Okay, that's their app that they use. So why does Ricochet not work as good as, say, Fortnite or Apex Legends? So here, just to compare, I brought up the concurrent players on Fortnite. Fortnite, 24-hour peak was 3.5 million players. Call of Duty's 24-hour peak was 100,000 players in the last, so not even close. And then Apex was 130,000 players. So Apex actually is beating out Call of Duty right now. Now let's say all-time peak let's go to all-time peaks. Fortnite all-time peak was a month ago at 14.3 million. Call of Duty's
so many.
Actually, it's surprisingly low. Call of Duty's peak in the last 2 years was 500,000, 500,000.
Oh my gosh. Those numbers, guys, are not close.
No, they're not even close. At all. That's actually pretty insane. It is 28 times less than Fortnite.
Holy cow.
That's almost 30 times less. And then Apex's all-time peak was 2 years ago at 600,000. A little less surprising, but still higher than Call of Duty's. So Call of Duty is actually the least popular between Fortnite, Apex, and Call of Duty. Now, I will caveat that this Call of Duty, I think, is only including once they combined the Call of Duties into a single app, which I think was Modern Warfare 1 or 2. So that's not including anything before there, but that's still about 2 years worth of data. So I'll say that these numbers are relatively accurate. So basically, Fortnite, Apex are in kind of their own league. Call of Duty is trailing behind a little bit. Apex is nowhere near where Fortnite is, but it's still a little bit better. Okay, so that combined. Okay, why is Ricochet such a crappy, anti-cheat?
Why is it ineffective?
To answer that question, I have to talk to you about what does an anti-cheat do and how does it work. Anti-cheats work like this. So if you're going to look up your own information, I really, really, really encourage you to take it with a grain of salt, because when I was looking up stuff for this, I noticed a lot of misinformation from people posting on like Reddit and stuff like that. You have these people who actually don't know what the hell they're talking about, answering questions that they don't know how it actually works. For instance, a lot of people I saw a couple of people on YouTube suggest that Call of Duty doesn't actually have any heuristic and they only ban people based off of reporting. That's not true. That's false. I also saw that people say that Call of Duty Ricochet is not a kernel level application anti-cheat. That's also not true. So there's just like a ton of misinformation out there. So I would almost say anything that you see online, even what I'm about to say, I would take with a grain of salt and is probably not true. So there's a lot of bad information out there. That being said, how do anti-cheats work? So anti-cheats work like this. So you'll see this word kernel space and user space sometimes when referring to anti-cheat. So what kernel space and user space is when you're developing an application, you can request access from the computer in two different kind of like, I'm watering this down like a lot. So I apologize for anybody who is technical out there and they're like, that's technically not true. And I'm like, I know, I'm watering this down. You can kind of operate in two spaces. There's kernel space and user space. Most applications work in user space, which means that like things like memory and permissions and things like that, and like registry edits and things like that, like really, really low level computer information communicating with like the hardware on your computer is limited. Like you're not allowed to manually go and edit memory that you don't like own. So like when an application runs, the computer gives you like a block of memory and is like, hey, this is the memory that you're going to work in called the heap. And this is the only thing you're allowed to like touch right now.
It's one has a deeper layer of access. That's all you need to say.
Yeah, and kernel basically gives you unlimited access. It's like, hey, you can really fuck shit up in kernel. Hey, like you're allowed to see everything not everything, but like almost everything that's working on the computer. Okay, so anti-cheats work in that kernel space, including Ricochet. Anything online that says that they don't is lying. What that means is while Call of Duty is running, they are actively monitoring your computer holistically, not just within the application. So they are reading your memory. They are reading your I/O. So anything that's going through your USB hubs, anything that's going through your internet, they're monitoring all of this information. Then they're using all of that information to try and guess if they see there's a cheater. The way that they do that is by some very advanced things, but basically the way that it happens is they say, okay, they look at cheats that exist. They look on these like big databases of cheats. This is also, by the way, how antiviruses work. This is the same exact thing. They basically have this huge database of known cheats. Hey, we know that this cheat does this thing. And so we're going to look out for that thing. And if we find that thing, guess what? We're going to mark you as a cheater. Okay, you've modified memory illegally. This is something that cheats do. We're gonna mark you as a cheater. Okay, so know that. The hard part about this is that you have to stay on that database. It's a very inefficient way to do it. It's not automatic. That means if there's a new cheat, guess what? It's not going to catch it because it's not in that database yet. So you have to have a team of people who are constantly like online, looking at forums, doing things, and modifying these databases to catch these things. There's also other patterns. There's called like heuristic analysis, where they check for unknown what are called 0-day cheats and stuff like that, things that haven't been discovered yet, but they're not 100% accurate. That's the thing, is like, yeah, sometimes they'll catch things, but if someone is really good, then it's going to slip through. Okay, a lot of manual work. Basically, the gist of it is there's a lot of manual work required to maintain an anti-cheat system, because it's not like a program where they can just say, hey, super smart AI, just check and make sure that there's no cheats going on. No, they have to constantly be like updating these, and they have to be ahead of the hackers, right? And which is impossible, because the hacker still has to use it at least one time before they can even know it exists. And then once they know it exists, they can add it to their database. So they're always, by definition, one step behind.
And not that we have time to go into this, but like a great example of this, of how a big game deals with this in Counter-Strike, Valve developed their back ban system, and it's user reviews. Actually, people can go in and user review and watch players and determine, basically for that reason, because they don't have enough manpower. They allow community members to do it. So anyway, go on.
Yeah, great point. So, okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is user reporting, right? So they also rely on user reports. So that's one of the methods that they use to add exploits to their database. So user reports, a certain number of users after a threshold, right, report a player. They will shadow ban that person. Then they will review sometimes, well, eventually, but they will review that internally, that player, to see, okay, are they actually using a cheat? If so, add that cheat to the database. They may or may not say, oh, that wasn't a player cheating, like, and then unban them. But honestly, like, there's probably so many people being banned, that's very unlikely to happen. They are doing these things, but because there's like probably like 1 million banned players at any given time, like, don't expect to be one of those players to get lucky like that. So a lot of this is dependent on automation. So, okay.
So is COD worse than other games?
Yeah, okay. So I'm getting there. And if this is confusing to any of you, please write in and I will clarify. I can do a whole episode on this, but I'm trying to keep the information pretty high level. Okay. So why is Call of Duty so shitty compared to the other games? Okay. Here's the thing. Technically, while Ricochet is objectively worse than the Fortnite and Apex Legends, the team working on it is probably just as competent as any of those other ones. So I wouldn't say it has anything to do with incompetence. They are trying to keep up as fast as possible. Here's the thing. One, Call of Duty, even though it's an insanely popular, very, very successful game, does not have the Fortnite money. So Fortnite, Epic Games, Epic is more than just Fortnite, right? They have a ton of stuff. They have their engine, whatever. They're just like printing money. They're one of the most successful gaming companies like in the world. So they are spending a ton of money and manpower on these anti-cheat systems. So they just have the money and the time and the technology to keep up with it. That's number one. That's why Fortnite is like really good. So why is Call of Duty not as good? They are a fraction of what Fortnite is. So the amount of money and time and manpower that they can put into their engine is significantly smaller than, say, Fortnite and maybe even Apex. But they have a very, enough, how do I say this? They have enough popularity that makes them a target, but not enough where they're like so fucking rich that they can spend $1 billion on their anti-cheat.
Also, I feel like as much as their competitive scene does exist, I still don't think it generates enough viewership and revenue to like support investing in anti-cheat. Like I think if you ask them what their priorities were, the cheaters would have always been low, because Call of Duty is not Counter-Strike. It is not Valorant, where it's like designed to be competitive. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of competitive people out there. And then Fortnite just happens to have like so much money. That's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I don't know. It really, there is a lot of cheating in Call of Duty for sure. You feel it. You definitely run into them. I think sometimes there's also issues that seem like cheating. Like if you have bad latency and like you're behind a wall and then you die and you're like, what was that? It's like, it seems like someone cheated, but they didn't. And then Call of Duty is also just a frustrating game. So sometimes you get killed and you feel like someone was cheating. So it's just like, it's kind of just really hard in general. And like, being able to report people and get them banned doesn't make sense because you're probably not right. Like, I don't know. It's a hard topic.
I completely agree with you. And that's another great point is, and I think it's worth diving into just a little bit more, is 99% of the time when you think somebody's cheating, they're not. Okay, that's just the fact. Does it seem like on your side maybe that they're cheating? Yes. Is it actually like a latency issue or a network issue or a rubber banding issue or something?
Or
99% of the time, it's that. Yeah. Or maybe something happened that you didn't know it was impossible. Like, for instance, I don't know if in the latest, but in one of the Call of Duties, like bullets would ricochet. So it's like maybe you got shot by a ricocheted bullet and didn't realize that that was a feature in the game. You know what I mean? So like there's 99.9% of the time I played in the latest Call of Duty, there's only one match I have played that I was a genuine cheater. And it was to the point of where it was like they had an aimbot and it was like they had like 150 kills and everyone else had 0. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing, to the point of where his own team left because they were like, oh, this guy is like clear. Like it was like so beyond obvious that this guy was cheating that it was like disgusting. So
the two times like I always people think like are people who something that looks like cheating that I do all the time and it cracks me up is shooting randomly through walls and pre-firing corners. And like I will literally just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna fire while I turn this corner, and then I kill someone, and I'm like, I bet it seemed like I was cheating, or like I'll just fire through a window and someone will die, and I'll be like, probably seemed like I was walking.
Yeah,
I was just randomly shooting.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like you have to have a good game sense. You're like, I know that that's a really good spot to hide. Most of there's usually probably like 10% of the time somebody's hiding behind there. So I'm going to put a couple of bullets in it to see if they're there. They were like, I totally agree with that. So, and I think,
but if they like 360 no scope headshot you with a pistol across the map, then that's a problem. But that's why kill cams exist, because literally you watch the kill cam and you can tell real quick.
Yeah. So long answer short, they are doing their best. Cheating is very hard to deter. It is a kind of like zero-sum game. It's like you win or you lose, and it's very hard. And yeah, they probably could put more effort into their anti-cheat, but I would say, and the thing is Ricochet too, that I want to bring up is that I think Ricochet is only used in Call of Duty. Let me.
That's true. I think it's their software.
Well, like, hold on, anti-cheat. I want to make sure before I go say anything about this. But basically, cheating Call of Duty, it's only using Call of Duty. Well, like Fortnite uses theirs for all of their games, and any Epic game uses theirs. And like for instance, like easy anti-cheat or whatever like that. Now that's not a total excuse because games like well, actually no, Valve uses they have their own that they use across the board, right? So it's like if a game,
but they developed it like it took years.
Yeah, of course. But the thing is, it's like, okay, if you're trying to support one game, you only have the budget of that one game. But if you're supporting dozens of games, you have the budget, a much larger budget. So I think it just comes down to manpower. And the fact that this is just that anti-cheats are a very, very difficult problem to solve. And the thing is too, so like, let's say, and you're stuck in a rock and a hard place if you're on that team, right? So if you have a very tough anti-cheat, you're very likely to ban players who are not cheating, right? If you have a really high threshold. Now, but if you have a low threshold and you allow a couple of cheaters in, where's the balance, right? Do you risk banning players and pissing them off, or do you allow a couple cheaters in and just allow them to ruin a few games, right? So you end up trying to find like this balance of like, okay, how strict are we? And do we just let these couple people ruin a few games and people just know that it's cheaters? Or or do we risk, banning players for life and then potentially losing them for multiple generations of games? So it's a really sticky situation to be in, and sadly doesn't have a very clear-cut answer. And no, I'm going to say AI is not going to fix this problem. You're not going to be able to throw like some super smart AI in there too. I'm sure somebody will try, but I promise you that's not going to be the answer, because AI is only as smart as information that it is given, and it is very easily tricked. And people who are creating these cheats are very, very, very smart and will know immediately how to trick these things. So no, I don't think AI is going to be a silver bullet. Maybe like in 30, 40 years or something, but not now.
My biggest takeaway is that Call of Duty is a lot smaller than I ever thought it was.
Right?
I guess Fortnite is still a lot bigger than I thought it was.
I was very surprised. And I was actually surprised how popular Apex was. If you look even Delta Force peak is 115 in the last 24 hours. That's higher than Call of Duty. They don't have the same all-time peak because they just haven't been around as long. It's only been a game for a few months, but it has a higher concurrent peak. Right now, they have more players on Delta Force than on Call of Duty right now. Very surprising stats to me. And I would say Delta Force is like a not popular, but like less popular game. So that means like Call of Duty is like, I would say Call of Duty is struggling this game. I can't speak for the other installments, but this particular Call of Duty has been struggling. So interesting. So yeah, Delta Force uses the Unreal anti-cheat, which is Fortnite. So that's interesting. Okay, so long-winded answer to a question. And guys, if you're interested in more information on this, let me know in the comments, please. Oh God, please, because I love talking about this stuff, and I don't know how deep you guys want me to go. But if you want, I will research the living crap out of this. I will reach out to the goddamn devs and try and ask them these questions about these things. So please, 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 if you're interested in more about like anti-cheats and stuff like that, let me know, and I will make more videos and more content about this. But you gotta tell us. If you guys don't tell us, we don't know. You guys gotta vote with your words here. We really appreciate it. So let me bring up my template. Before we dive in, we really appreciate those who follow and subscribe. We're a small podcast, and we were trying to build a very tight community, a safe gaming community here. We heavily curate our community. I'm just going to let you guys know that right now. We heavily curate our community because we don't allow hate. We don't allow negativity. Like, we don't allow any of that trolling stuff like that. So if you want to be part of our community, please give us a follow, give us a subscribe. And if you see anything that, we missed, let us know. Because we're always trying to create a safe place for people. But please give us a follow, give us a subscribe, write in questions. We love that stuff. So you can find us mostly on YouTube, Pixelated Realms podcast. We're also on podcast services. We're on Instagram and Threads as well, but we don't really post that often. So, okay, let's dive in a little bit more into kind of, the meat and potatoes. So what's our official review, Tyler? I'm going to talk about Silent Hill. You're going to talk about Metaphor and Outlaws. I think, do you want to start? Then I'll do Silent Hill, and then we can end it on one of yours.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I know where we're going to try to do official videos for these, so I'll kind of parse this out any way I can. But we do have just kind of a little way of going through this that I'll try to do for my games here. And honestly, we could also wait to do Star Wars Outlaws if you want to finish it before we do. So I'll start with Metaphor ReFantazio. I could definitely do multiple videos on this game because it really is a monster. It has lived up to the hype. Okay, what game are we playing? I've mentioned that Metaphor ReFantazio. When did it come out? Oh, geez. I need to do my own research.
I forgot. You have like a template that you built out, huh? I just look at our Patreon 10th. Post when I do the video.
Came out roughly 3 months ago. The developer is Atlas, the same team that brought to us all the Persona games. They just seemed to knock out bangers every single time. What genre of game? It is a turn-based JRPG adventure game. There's no other way to put that. My first impressions of the game, they actually start out, so if you didn't catch our older video about Metaphor ReFantazio, I do recommend, and we'll try to link it here to one of these places.
The one that says, is it overrated, that people really loved that video, meaning they hated it? They hated it. They were all up in our grill about it. No, it's not.
Well, our clickbaity title aside, I'm really happy to say that, no, it's not overrated. I think it is perfectly appropriately rated and met all of the expectations and even blew past a few of those that I had. the beautiful thing is they do offer a demo of the game that is literally just the first 10 hours of the game. And so you can't
10
really...
hours is the demo?
That's the demo, and it's just, and you can continue. So, like, you kind of have no excuse if you like the game to, like, not download the demo, or, like, want to
That's
try
awesome.
it, to download the demo and play. The first 10 hours, though, I gotta say, I was just like, I didn't feel like it took the Persona formula and adapted it to an adventure fantasy style very well. But that was because it's actually after that kind of like 8 to 10 hour mark that you get the really good stuff. So like immediately after we made that episode, I played more and I was like, whoa, like the world opens up, you go travel around, like it's completely different than the first, like, 8 hours. So that was really funny, and made me feel stupid after we released that video. But yeah, my total playtime was over 100 hours on the game. I completed every ship. I completed all but 2 quests. I'll get into that a little bit later. But it is a calendar-based game, so you have to make decisions every day, and you have a limit to how many decisions you make, right? So you don't just have, you can't, for the most part, you can't just infinitely farm everything. Now they've changed that a little bit, so there is some infinite farms, but we can talk about that a little bit. Now, the main idea of this game, if you haven't played any Personas or this game, is that your characters have these special powers, and you develop these special powers, similar to like a stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or, Personas from the Persona games. And you have turn-based battles. The new systems, instead of it being entirely centered around hitting their weakness, which allows you to get another turn, now when you hit the enemy's weakness, you basically only take up half of a turn, and then you can do with that other half of the turn whatever you like. So it changed the mechanics of the game in some subtle ways that ended up actually being very beneficial and really useful. It also did some really cool mechanics where instead of it always being a turn-based battle, which is how the Persona games work, you now have this outer world battle where you can just hit an enemy with a sword, and if they're a low level, you'll kill them outright. And you don't have to go through a lengthy turn-based battle because you're going to whip them anyway. You're going to destroy them up. So because of that, you actually introduce mechanics where you can infinitely level your characters, so you can grind out levels, because you can just go to an area that has guys who you can attack without going into turn-based mode, and then reset it and go back and kill them all, reset it. So I did that quite a few times, getting my characters nice and beefy, mastering all their classes. And unlike in the Persona games, each character can actually take any class. So in the Persona games, your main character can they can do a variety of things, but each of your side characters only has access to kind of one class. In this one, everyone has access to all of them, and you can build, and it kind of reminds me of like Final Fantasy 12 or Final Fantasy Tactics a little bit, where you can take, or they call it inherit, abilities from another class into, the
I
current
love that.
class
I love
have.
that system.
Yeah, and so be like, okay, I'm going to go try to be a gunner, but my guy was a swordsman, but I'll inherit a couple of the swordsman abilities so that he, has some variety. So yeah, by the end of the game, you've developed a whole bunch of these classes. You have all of these different combinations, and luckily the game is not easy. It's fairly difficult. Even grinding a ton and getting my guys all mastered, I still had to try to beat the game. After 100 hours, I did. Missing out on the ultimate weapon quest by 1 day of time. So I did everything you needed to go get the ultimate power ultimate thing. And I went to go get it, and it was like, no, actually the world ends tomorrow. You need to, it takes 2 days to go there and back. And I was like, no. And the reason I missed that day was because I thought I was going to fight the boss, but it wasn't. And I went to go fight the boss, and it was like, I'll see you in 2 days. And I was like, no, that was the time. That was the time I needed. So, yeah. But luckily, this game has a New Game Plus feature, so you can hop right back in. Super
and you
overpowered.
get another 100.
And another 100 hours later, yeah. So overall, I'll go through my list here as far as the key aspects of the game. Story and narrative. Story-wise, I think the overarching story was really good, really engaging and interesting. At individual points, the writing was kind of questionable because it's like, we need to go kill this person for the good of the kingdom. We killed him. The thing we accomplished didn't happen. So are we just murderers now? Like,
Are
there's like
we
little
are we
moments,
the
like,
bad guys?
yeah, there's little moments where we're like, morally, we were not doing the right thing, but in the end, it was the right thing. That's just, it's like, you didn't know it was, you thought it was the right thing. It wasn't. I don't want to spoil, but like,
Yeah.
there was some writing beats that I felt were, you just kind of had to ignore, but the overarching story, like the One Piece part of it, that was good. And that actually did keep me going, until the very end. As far as your individual relationships with the characters goes, because that's a big part of these types of games, you develop these relationships and those develop your skills. I was not particularly impressed, to be perfectly honest. Persona 5, I felt like every single character, well, for the most part, each character was quite unique, and I was actually kind of interested in like exploring this character relationship with them. In Metaphor ReFantazio, I personally was not super interested in like half of the other characters. I thought they were all right, but I just didn't feel like anyone's story really was like that emotional. They were all emotional, but like I couldn't get myself to care despite, even enjoying what was going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
Music, soundtrack, voice acting, I think it was all really, really good. I give it high marks. But I will say Persona 5 has legendary music, and as great as the music was for Metaphor, I don't think it gets the 10 out of 10 that Persona does.
Mm.
Mechanics and gameplay, though, I think it does win. They've really tuned up a lot of things about the way they style these games. Just quality of life, just things that like were kind of irritating in the Persona games, and they tweaked it so that you have more flexibility and more just less frustration in general. So mechanics and gameplay, I give a huge plus to, and I cannot wait for Persona 6 because I want to see how they adapt that.
Mm-hmm.
Performance was great, no issues there. User interface was fantastic. I think they do a fantastic job with it. Very, very fun score. I'd give it high marks. Game loop, also fantastic. So that's kind of just our criteria real quick. All in all, on our scale here, I'm going to give this an excellent. That is our just before our highest rating that we give. Excellent. I'm going to say must play for Persona fans. Absolutely must play for turn-based RPG fans in general, or JRPG fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's where we'll keep it. My criticisms overall are, I think, character design, including the main character, I felt were good, but not fantastic. I thought some of the character stories were good, but not fantastic. Trying to think of some other things. Yeah, I think just as far as like, because we got Persona 5 and it was such a banger in its style and music,
Mm-hmm.
both like stylistically and musically, it was hard to beat. But I would say Metaphor beats it in everything other than those two things. And that's not a bad thing because it's really just personal preference, right? So I even hesitate to say it. So if you felt like the character's design and the music was perfectly appropriate for the setting, then that's great. No problem. So yeah, all in all, we're giving this high marking, excellent score. Please get your hands on it if you're a fan of JRPGs. And we'll hope to see more either this series or Persona 6 in the future.
Very cool. I'm glad, because I remember when you were first talking about it, you were like, I'm not so sure that this is like the 10 out of 10 that everybody's saying, but it seems like it really turned around for you. So that's awesome.
Totally. Absolutely.
Just, if you're interested in our review scale, I know we didn't really mention it, but if you go to our Patreon, pixelatedrealms.com/Patreon, or .org, sorry, pixelatedrealms.org/Patreon, we have a total breakdown of how we review our games. So like our scale, for instance, is number one is a masterpiece. We do it based off of labels. We don't give them numbers. But they have a number association.
To stay away from numbers.
But we feel like that really pigeonholes us. So we want to give it more of like a feeling. Number one is masterpiece, then excellent, which is what Tyler gave it. Great, good, okay, bad, and awful. So we're out of a 7-point scale. And then we also give them modifiers and accolades. So modifiers are like additional information that we think is important about the game. And then accolades are like awards that we kind of give it. So Tyler gave it an excellent. So that's our second best next to masterpiece. I'm going to very quickly give my review of Silent Hill 2. Then I talked about it already, so I'm not going to dig into it too deep, but my overview synopsis of it is it relies too heavily on the atmosphere. It's basically just a maze with an occasional puzzle tossed in. The story is completely lacking in my opinion. Maybe I'll change that opinion once I've beaten the game, but I doubt it. this far into it. I think I'm confident in giving it, honestly, our first bad, which is so surprising because I thought I was going to love this game. Honestly, I thought I was going to love it. Maybe that's why I'm giving it such a bad
right now because, we're willing to change if we feel like our opinions
we are.
change.
This is an in-progress review at the moment, but bad. So our second worst review. So I'm going to give it an official bad. So we define that as like games with significant flaws that can make the experience frustrating. They're often disappointing, but might have a few redeeming qualities. So I do think there are a few redeeming qualities, but I think the overall experience is bad. All right, you want to give us your rundown of Outlaws? And I'll also give my review, even though I'm at the heist portion. I have my entire team. I haven't finished it, but I think I'm probably ready to give a review.
I mean this in the best way possible, but the heist is pretty much what you think it's going to be.
Okay.
It's not like going to blow you away in terms of scale.
That's not different than any of the rest of the game, right?
It's a heist. Yeah, you heist it, you succeed, things happen.
Right.
Okay, so going in, Star Wars Outlaws, I just want to say, first and foremost, I enjoy this game a lot. I also really just enjoy Ubisoft chill games. This is why the bad reviews happen, because certain people just do not like Ubisoft chill games. And you got to realize, when you play an Ubisoft game, they're going to tell you where every piece of treasure is, with their map. They're going to tell you every quest and how to get there. But that's like part of the fun, man. Just relax. Like, you don't have to read dialogue in this game. When you're, it's not a text adventure. Just go in.
They have a bounty. They have a formula. They're not trying to be the next Blockbuster
or Dark Souls, right?
Yeah, they design
Ring, right?
Right, they do that on purpose. Like that's like their goal is not to create these massive blockbusters, or at least currently. I know that they're kind of announced that they want to start doing that a little bit, but like they're not trying to knock it out of the park every day. They're trying to be consistent and they're trying to give like a good experience. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I mean, like, so I really dug into that when I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I was like, this game is not super intense, but if you really just enjoy like exploring the Greek Isles, like it's a fantastic game. And it's the same with Star Wars. If you like Star Wars and you just want to like have this environment, you're never going to beat a game. So you're never going to beat this game. So just going into things, story narrative wise, I mean, it has high marks for me. I am highly biased because I love the Star Wars universe and I'm highly knowledgeable about the Star Wars universe. So I know how all these things connected. The one thing I will say is they introduced Kira, the former love affair of Han Solo from his movie. And then they didn't develop her. She just ended up being a syndicate leader. And I get that because she's kind of a big character. So it's not like we're going to like shoot her or something like that. But I was expecting more of her. I was expecting more involvement with her character specifically. Yeah. We might get it later. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
there's an opportunity with new DLC because they are continuing to support the game.
Story-wise, it was a simple heist story, and I had no problem with that. I think it fit the format perfectly well. I don't really have any issues. I liked, and I don't want to spoil this for Alex, but I liked some adjacency to the main Star Wars characters. So,
how dare you?
You don't, you never ever interact with any main character, but there's definitely some shoulder brushing, which I think is appropriate for K-Vess's status in the universe. Music, sound, dialogue, voice acting wise, I think it was all fantastic. I actually would have liked a little bit more confidence from the music department. I think they did a good job of emulating the Star Wars feel, the John Williams feel, but I wanted more. I actually wanted more interruptions. I wanted more. John Williams' fantastic style is about being upfront, and I felt like there was a lot of no music times, and I made sure my music thing was repeating. So, voice acting wise, though, there was some criticism about this. Some are better than others. So, it's nothing to me like, I don't know. I don't think it's anything too bad, though. Mechanics and gameplay, I think they, like we were saying earlier, they did a good job with what they envisioned. I would argue it was a bit boring as far as like actual combat was, and even like sneaking around. It's personally, this is just with all Ubisoft games, right? It's you're gonna climb a mountain, you're gonna solve a puzzle, and are they super fun? No, but like, is it a nice, like I said, relaxing, just like you don't have to really turn your mind on too much kind of thing? Yes. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more in the combat development, to be honest. I found that by the end of the game, the entire strategy was like, do anything that'll get my adrenaline bar to full, then use adrenaline, shoot 5 or 6 people, immediately kill them all, and then do that again. And that was combat, because there was no point in doing any. If someone shot me, I'd get adrenaline. If I jumped, I got adrenaline. If I shot them, I got adrenaline. So like Nyx wasn't even necessary. I literally could just, besides like detonating grenades at the end. So I thought combat could have been more interesting, but I wasn't complaining because of the style of the game.
Right.
I think the way you interact with Nyx was enjoyable and made a lot of sense, but occasionally I felt like he was either useless or too necessary, which is kind of a weird method. I will say the one thing that it was a huge highlight for me is just the way you develop the skills in the game. So in this game, you meet a character. It's a very unique system. So you meet a character. That character then will give you 10 tasks, and you have to accomplish these tasks, like, evade 3 hits or something, or jump and tackle a guy or something. And that will unlock a new power for you. And I have a little bit of a gripe with it, because if you don't focus on it, you're actually missing out on a huge portion of the game. And I wish the game kind of encouraged you to be like, hey, you should like do all of these relationships first, like before you do anything else. But it doesn't. It kind of is like, no, do them at your own pace. Here's a hint. And I think it should kind of force you to do them. But I spent the last part of the game unlocking all of those skills, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a new game now. Like, I have way better stealth, I have way better shooting, all of these things. So lots to explore, but eventually when you go do the end mission, it wasn't that hard. So really just a relaxing mechanical game as far as like the mechanics and gameplay go. Performance, unfortunately, it did have some issues. It's a monster of a game as far as beauty goes. I was floored. I mean, honestly, every single planet is a 10 out of 10 visually in my book. I mean, it really, I cannot wait for the possibility of new planets.
And they give you, like, what I love too is like they're all over the map. There's these locations where they lets you just like sit or lean up against something, and it's clearly designed to be just like a photo mode. And so your character will just kind of like relax and chill, and then it'll zoom out a little bit and just show you like the world. And it's great. It's beautiful. And I appreciate that like little bit of like rest, because I feel like it's easy for you to play a game and miss the beauty of the game itself, and just by rushing through it, and you're just like, you're given these like checkpoints every now and again, and it'll be random. It'll be like in an outpost or something. It'll be like, hey, you can sit in this spot. You'll sit and it'll kind of zoom out a little bit, and you're like, whoa, like this is actually really cool.
I mean, the amount of effort that some of these digital artists must put into these planets it absolutely blows me away. Yeah. And it goes so underappreciated. So the beauty of this game is amazing. However, that does cause crashes. I had several crashes. I had bugs and times where the game soft locked, or, buttons didn't work, freezes. So yeah, I actually have removed whole points for this, because of this game actually had really, really rough time.
What are you playing on? PC?
Yep, PC for me.
Okay, I'm playing on the PlayStation. I have had 0 bugs.
I do have an Intel chip, so...
That's true. The Intel's been... Problem.
Moving on, user interface, I also have some gripes with. I played with a controller. Although I was on PC, I did play with a PlayStation controller. And in order to throw a grenade, I had to hold D-pad left and then hit right trigger.
Yeah,
and it was completely
annoying.
Unacceptable, guys. Ubisoft, this is a complaint I've had for years, but like, I don't know why you guys have the weird controller setups you do, and then you just forget about mouse and keyboard. Like if you're playing an Ubisoft game, pick up a controller or you're screwed, because mouse and keyboard, they do not know how to format a key binding to a mouse and keyboard. Hell, they don't know how to do it controllers. So really disliked how they set up the controller scheme in this game. It was like buttons would randomly change sometimes in their function. Like, one button would do this thing, but when you hopped on the bike, that button now didn't do the same thing. And it was just like, so that was a big point of frustration. But luckily, the game was incredibly fun. I thought it was relaxing and a great game loop. For me, even despite the performance issues, despite maybe not living up to my expectations as far as combat goes, I'm still going to give this a great rating. That is our 3rd highest rating. I think this is a must-play for anyone who loves Star Wars. Absolutely. Stunning visuals, 100%. Maybe the most stunning visuals of the year. And yeah, to me, this is a very, very great game. Should be picked up by anyone who enjoys this type of game or Star Wars.
I agree. I would also give it the same. I would give it great, which is basically like our 8. I would do the same thing. I think it's a fantastic game, and I completely agree with everything you said. Like very fun, worth picking up. Maybe pick it up on sale or something if you guys are on the fence about it. But yeah, I love it. We've talked about it a lot actually the last like many months, so it's clearly
Also,
on our mind.
We're both addicted to Zabak because it's really fun.
Dude,
the in-game
I know.
card game.
I was so close. So I found this guy who created the. So they use a specific version in the game called Kessel Sabak, which they created for the game, and it has slightly different rules. So like Sabak in the Star Wars universe, like they haven't like nailed down what they kind of
like
wanted it to be,
game.
like the exact version. So each time they play it, they play different versions. So like there's like a Corellian version of Sabak, which I think is used in the movie, and then there's like whatever Sabak and this Sabak and that.
Chalk it up to being different types of poker in different universes, right? Yeah.
But they're all similar. Like they all still have the same kind of cards and stuff. This is my favorite, obviously, because it's like a real working game. But I found a guy who makes the set, and I almost bought it. But it's like, it's easy to get wrapped up because you could buy the cards, which are like, I don't know, like $40, $50 or whatever. But then you could buy each of the tokens that you use to like play down, and they're like, but you could buy like sets of them. So it's like you could easily accidentally spend like hundreds of dollars on this because you're like, well, I want to make sure I have enough set for every player at the table. And then you want to make sure, like, all these things. So I was like, oh, it's a rabbit hole. Maybe I should just stick to the cards.
It was a fun card game.
I want to play it in
like gambling, which was really fun. So yeah, there was a lot of fun mini games and things like that. So we really do recommend you pick up Outlaws, especially if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yes. Okay. Do you got anything else? Cool. Well, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. I know we went on a lot of tangents this episode. So if your eyes haven't rolled into the back of your skull and you're already at this spot, then we very much appreciate you. You're probably in our top 1% of listeners. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to follow or subscribe to be notified when we post new episodes. We post new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Pixelated Realms Podcasts. Thank you very much.